Potential Chancellor and leader of the Conservative Party, Friedrich Merz, has ruled out an immediate reform of the country's borrowing limits known as the debt brake.
It is out of the question in the near future that we will reform the debt brake. If it happens at all, it will be quite extensive and difficult work that needs to be done. I have also read that there is already speculation about a special fund. We are talking to each other, but it is far too early to say anything about it now.
Merz's Conservatives secured victory in the national elections but fell short of a majority. They now face complex coalition talks and a more divided parliament after a surge in support for the far-right AfD party.
I'm also prepared to take on this leadership responsibility in the government as federal chancellor. But all this requires a well-negotiated coalition agreement with the Social Democrats. I'm still assuming that we can negotiate a good coalition agreement with the Social Democrats and that we can do this within a reasonable period of time, so that we really do have a government with a majority in the German parliament by Easter.
Friedrich Merz, the man set to lead Germany's next government, says that strengthening Europe and reducing dependence on the United States will be his top priority when he takes office. His remarks come as relations between the two continents are undergoing a historic shift. For more on what this means, let's bring in Deutsche Welle reporter Kate Ferguson from Berlin. Hi, Kate. First of all, tell us a bit about Germany's next chancellor. Who is Friedrich Merz?
Well, he's a 69-year-old longtime conservative who resumed his political career a few years ago after holding various positions in the private sector, including as chairman of the German branch of asset manager BlackRock. Now, he's known as a hardliner, representing the right-wing faction of his party. And for a long time in Germany, he was actually best known as the rival of former Chancellor Angela Merkel, whose centrist approach, and especially her decision to open Germany's borders during the migration crisis of 2015, he sharply criticized. In terms of his character, he's decisive, a plain speaker. Some critics might say he's abrasive. And when it comes to his plans for the future domestically, he's determined to enforce stricter rules on migration and to tackle Germany's flagging economy. Internationally, as you mentioned, his priority is making Europe stronger, especially in the face of Russian aggression and the growing perception due to Trump's shaky commitment to NATO that the United States can simply no longer be fully relied upon when it comes to defense.
Okay, and what does strengthening Europe look like in practice, and why this desire to lessen dependence on the United States now?
Well, making Europe stronger means expanding its military might, and the current US administration has made it clear that it will no longer provide Europe with unconditional security guarantees, and that's despite its NATO membership. Donald Trump's determination to end the war in Ukraine by speaking directly to Vladimir Putin without involving Europe really marks the end of transatlantic relations in the form that they've been known since the end of World War II. Now, in concrete terms, Friedrich Merz will have to increase defense spending and perhaps form a kind of European defense alliance that would exist alongside or even instead of a weakened NATO. He may also have to ask France and the UK to share their nuclear protection with Germany, which doesn't itself have an atomic weapon.
And finally, Kate, what challenges will Merz face in his goal of making Europe stronger and more independent?
So the biggest challenge will definitely be maintaining unity. Now, one positive is that Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer is keener to restore good relations with the EU than his predecessors were. And in fact, the UK has just announced an increase in defence spending. But among the EU's 27 member countries, there are many competing interests. And if we take Hungary, for example, its leader, Viktor Orban, has vetoed certain EU sanctions against Russia. And generally, he has a more favourable view of the Trumpian approach to politics than his EU counterparts do. Budgetary issues are an additional concern. Overall, the EU's economy is lagging behind that of the United States and China, and putting more money into defence could be a hard sell. So Friedrich Merz will have to make a very compelling case for European unity, and that could mean outlining just how big a risk the continent faces from Russia if it fails to act now.
Okay, we leave it here. Thank you very much, Kate Ferguson, joining us from DW Berlin. US President Donald Trump will host